Hi everyone, you're watching a brand new Skin Sense here on SSP TV. We are happy to be back as we get through the pandemic and some restrictions are lifted in the state of Pennsylvania with no masks. We're back here at Germ Docs with Dr. Steve Schleicher, and we are going to hit on COVID and restrictions a little bit later on in the program. But first, we have a guest with us. We have Lucy Plaza, and she works here for Germ Docs. And with a growing population of the Spanish community, it's perfect, Doc, to have Lucy here to communicate.
Absolutely, because we have a big Hispanic outreach, okay? And as everybody knows, our community is what, 55% maybe, 60% Hispanic, which is pretty amazing, and I think is very remarkable and very rewarding, because before the influx, Hazleton was, you know, kind of like on the outs, because people would have kids and the kids wouldn't stay here. They would leave, which is very tragic. But all of a sudden, jobs started coming into the area and people started to stay. Not only that, we started to see, again, this influx of New Yorkers and from Newark and wherever to be part of the labor market, okay? So it's a win-win situation. And you are from where?
From New Jersey.
From New Jersey
Yeah,
originally.
I am from Newark, New Jersey. I've been residing here for about 5 years now, 6 years actually, correction.
Right. And I grew up 10 miles from Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, really?
So we were kind
I had no idea.
Yeah, we were kind of neighbors. You were the noisy person, I think. I used to hear when I opened my window.
I was the one blowing up the music.
It had to be you. So, and you're originally from?
So I am Puerto Rican. I am full-blown Puerto Rican, raised half of my life in New Jersey and half in Puerto Rico, in San Sebastian.
Right, and I've been to San Juan a couple of times, and I really like it.
Oh, isn't it nice there?
Oh, it's great there. Yeah, it's awesome there.
It's my beautiful island.
Tell us a little bit about your background, your family, and how you came to be here in the Cunningham Valley.
So, that might be a little bit too personal. However, the vague version, there was a death from a really close relative, and I promised, it was my dad, by all means. I promised my dad that I would move to Pennsylvania. So before he had passed, obviously. So when I finally moved out here, I started an online dating application.
Oh, really? Oh, wow, that's interesting.
And I met who is now my husband here.
But you have children, right? And they're in the area.
Yes, so I have two, actually. I have a 14-year-old boy and a 12-year-old little girl, thankfully.
How is it with working with the community? You know, obviously you're bilingual.
Yes, so very fluent on both languages. And it's, as far as parenting goes and work, like it's been a little bit of, I guess it's a little bit of a struggle, you can say, in some ways, because, you know, you're working full-time. I'm also a full-time student and a full-time mom, but it all works out. How
does that help your office, Doc? How do you see an increase?
So that, what do we have, 3 Hispanic staff members?
Yes, so there is 4 actually. There's 4 of us in the office. We're very fluent in both languages, and it has actually helped because with such a high population of Hispanics near the Hazleton and Wilkes-Barre area, they're all coming here, including people from Stroudsburg. And you know Stroudsburg is full of Hispanics and Americans, obviously.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that about Stroudsburg.
There's a ton because they're all traveling from New York to Pennsylvania back and forth for work.
Right. So,
and some of them are coming here for their medical expenses.
We couldn't do it without our Hispanic workers. It would just not work. So,
yeah, population has grown quite substantially in the past 15 years, I'd say, from what I've researched. Yeah.
How often do you feel you use Spanish and your ability to speak bilingual here with the patients that call?
I would say every day. Even on the phone, most of our callers are Spanish callers.
Right, so we want people to know. I know sometimes that if you're not familiar with speaking English or you feel a little uncomfortable with not knowing the language, sometimes you won't get health care. And in this market, we know that through the hospital and through offices like Dr. Schleicher's, there is translation for you and for someone that you might know. So please do not not go to the doctor or deter from going to the doctor because you might have that language barrier. There is help, right?
Yeah, there's definitely help. Again, as I said, we're very fluent. You are more than welcome here. We will take care of all your needs as much as to our ability.
Which brings up a good point, because the Latin population, I mean, their skin color ranges from pale, white, to dark. And we see a whole spectrum of skin diseases, just like we do in the U.S. So everybody thinks Hispanics are Latins or dark-skinned. Well, there's some very light-skinned, and the more or the less pigment you have, the greater the chance that you can develop skin cancer.
That is correct,
as a result
yes.
of sun. And we're seeing more and more of Hispanic patients develop skin cancers, okay? Because, and sometimes misdiagnosed because, oh, it's a Latin patient, well, no way they can have a skin cancer. Well, they can. So just be careful. If you're fair-skinned, especially, no matter what your nationality is, you really have to be careful with the sun. And
you are also diverse stock with any kind of skin disorders that pertain to not only Caucasians, but also the Spanish or Latino.
We see psoriasis, we see eczema. There's nothing more prevalent.
A lot of pigmentation as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, but you're right. The things that stand out more, people have what's called hyperpigmentation. Like if they have acne and it heals, they can get a dark spot the more deeply complected you are. Or if you have a condition such as vitiligo, where you have white patches, well, that stands out in darker individuals.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lucy, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For coming
thank
on
you
the
for
show.
Having me over.
I guess gracias, if I'm saying that right? Is that thank you?
The what? Gracias.
Gracias?
Yes.
I'm
like,
trying
what?
Lucy, explain
I'll
that.
stick to English.
Lucy, explain that to your kids, all right?
I will. I'm going to try to get them to
Good.
speak Spanish. I promise.
Awesome,
And
awesome.
if you call here, you might speak with Lucy. So again, Lucy Plaza on the show with us, speaking bilingual here at Germ Docs. We'll be right back because we are going to talk about the pandemic, COVID. You'll be interested in the amounts of colds we've seen and maybe some things that we haven't seen due to wearing the mask. Stay with us. You're watching Skin Sense here on SSP TV. Hey everyone, you're watching Skin Sense here on SSP TV. I'm your host, Janine Lasant. If you're just tuning in, you missed our first guest, Lucy Plaza. She is a front desk worker here at Germ Docs. She is bilingual, so if you are a patient who cannot speak English relatively well or know someone who cannot speak English relatively well, please tell them to call the office with their health concerns, because she can help with the translation, doc. And you've done a good job with, as the increase of the population is bilingual of your patients, having people here to interpret and help them so that these people can get the help they need as far as taking care of their health.
Absolutely. Too bad I can't speak English too well.
There you go. Well, we try. That's
so
you're just
I
here
may
to
need
do
someone to
the
help
medical
me.
part. We have people who talk for you, I guess.
Right, which is good. Which is good.
So now we want to talk a little bit about COVID and the pandemic. Let's go back a little bit to when COVID first hit. This area, as in the Hazleton market, was a hot spot for COVID.
It was the hottest spot in Pennsylvania. It had the highest percentage of COVID patients virtually anywhere in the country, which was pretty remarkable. And we were at the epicenter, okay? And my office closed, okay? I can't remember when exactly, February, when things were shutting down. And we were closed for 6 weeks, which is basically unheard of. But of course, the whole universe closed down. So I mean, we're going to look back on this, probably even 2 years and maybe barely remember what happened. But it was, pretty disastrous.
Yeah, and we've learned a lot about how we change in our business and how we accept different things. And I know for you, you've been doing telehealth for as many years. We've been doing this show 25 years. So talk a little bit about that with technology, because this is something you've been doing and now it's the norm
for the society. And I've been doing telemedicine since, believe it or not, 1999. People thought I was crazy. But I actually have a contract with the state prisons, and I have 39,000 inmates who are basically my patients to some degree. Okay, and I don't go, some of the prisons are 500 miles away. So I don't go to prisons, I treat them remotely. So I get their pictures, and then I schedule the appointment with the inmate, with the prison doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs, and it works out beautifully. So when COVID struck and everybody's saying, what's this telemedicine? How am I going to do it? I'm saying, what? You know, I'd be getting phone calls like, hey, Schleicher, you were right. You know, can you help us out with this? It's actually very easy to do. I mean, it's not rocket science, but if you're not used to doing it and dealing with patients that way and people that way, it's a whole new ballgame.
So how has that changed for your industry, for dermatology care, for dermatological care, for patients seeing them? Is that something you will keep doing?
Which is an excellent point, because, you know, it all of a sudden everybody knows about telemedicine. So before, nobody really thought about it. Well, let's say...
Or trusted in it.
Or trusted in it. But look at it from a real practical standpoint. You have a kid, you have somebody with acne, and the kid goes to college. You know, and the college is out of state, but he needs a follow-up. So what are you going to have the kid drive back or find a dermatologist where there's a 8-week delay to get in? Makes no sense. So what do? We have him send a picture of his complexion, and then we can judge how he's doing just by the picture.
So really, if anything out of the pandemic, there have been some progression in how we do business, whatever field, but especially in the line of medicine and medical.
Yes,
You know, and I know that field has been bombarded. Where are we at with masks for the medical field? Again, and you're watching this over a few weeks, so things can change, but for the most part, you are wearing masks in the office.
In the office, when you're around patients, we do wear masks, okay? And that's kind of the mandate. Majority of our patients are vaccinated, which is great. So if we see a patient solely or in a room and the patient's vaccinated and we're vaccinated, well, we don't have to be too stringent with the mask. But when we're in the hallway or the gals out front or whatever, well, you kind of encourage mask wearing because that's the standard.
Right.
Okay, but you know, by all means, anybody who has not been vaccinated, there's no real reason not to get vaccinated, so you want to do so.
Okay, so if you're vaccinated and you're near someone you know has COVID, are you covered?
If you're vaccinated, technically, yes, you're prevented from getting COVID.
Right.
Because that's what the vaccine is all about. Okay, but from a practical standpoint, the more people are vaccinated, the less chance we have of getting exposed to people who are unvaccinated. And the problem is, if you're unvaccinated, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing other people a disservice, because the more people have COVID, the greater the chance that we can get these mutations called variables. Okay, and mutations may one day not be amenable to vaccine prevention. God forbid that happens. That would not be a good thing.
So being in the medical field, you feel that the COVID vaccine is safe, although it was developed so quickly?
Yeah, it was a great point, because a lot of people say, well, it was developed so quickly, okay? But the technology is, you can't catch COVID from the vaccine. Bill Gates is not putting in a microchip with every vaccine, okay? We have to be real. COVID's killed 600,000 Americans. All right, we don't want any more Americans being killed. All right, the vaccine, yes, it's safe. It's based on technologies that we know are safe. It's not like you're putting the virus in your arm. We're just putting these little tiny fragments made in the laboratory that build up your immune system that actually will prevent, COVID.
So do you feel it's safe for even younger children and teens?
Well, anybody 12 or above, absolutely. Now, younger than that, it's being tested, and
why is that? Because they're still growing, or what is the?
Well, kids are kids.
Yeah.
So they're different than adults.
Right.
So by and large, anything that we use for kids and approved for kids by the FDA has to be tested on kids, because they are different.
Very good.
But then again, we get measles vaccines, we get chickenpox vaccines, we get tetanus vaccines, we get whooping cough as a kid. So vaccines are safe. So, they will be safe in kids, but they have to be proven, though. Just, that's the way it is.
So get your vaccine. According to Dr. Schleicher, we're vaccinated, and that's why we're not wearing masks. When we come back, we're going to talk about what the masks have done as far as coughs and colds and other things, that it we've seen a decrease in the common cold when we come back. So stay with us right here on SSP TV. Hi, and welcome back to Skin Sense right here on SSP TV. If you're just tuning in, we are here at Germ Docs. We have talked to Lucy Plaza. She is bilingual, so if you speak Spanish and you need an appointment here, we can definitely help you out. Also, we're talking about the importance of getting your COVID vaccine. I know that, Doc, you've seen firsthand the effects of COVID and how many people have had it, how many people have suffered from it. You yourself had a scare.
Yeah, I mean, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people know people who've died from COVID, okay? So when you have 600,000 Americans who've had it, I mean, who've been killed by COVID, you know, everybody knows someone who's been affected. And way back in early March of last year, I got sick. I mean, I got fever, I got chills, but the worst part was the shortness of breath. Okay, and back then, everybody was talking about hydroxychloroquine. Okay, so I took the advice of some people, including the president, who said it might help. Because I was sick. I mean, I was really sick. And I was too afraid to go to the hospital because it was filled with COVID patients.
Yeah.
I mean, it was inundated. And I said, what's the, unless I absolutely have to go. So I started taking hydroxychloroquine.
Okay.
Okay. And guess what? Within 2 or 3 days, I started feeling a lot better.
Now, were you tested for COVID?
Okay, so here's the thing. I started feeling better, and then on the 4th day, I woke up in the middle of the night with the most severe chest pains. I said, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. All right? But I was still too afraid to go to the hospital because I just couldn't do it. By the next morning, the chest pains had left. I was still kind of afraid, and I still had shortness of breath. Okay, I stopped that because one of the things with hydroxychloroquine, it can have an effect on your heart. Okay, so I either had two things, COVID affecting my heart or the hydroxychloroquine affected my heart.
So you'd rather die in your bed than go to the hospital.
So I just couldn't go in. The shortness of breath persisted for about 3 more weeks. And then one Saturday, I said, you know what, I'm going to go to McDonald's and get, whatever, an Egg McMuffin. And then I was driving in. I said, you know what? I can't. I'm going right to the hospital. Because I still had the shortness of breath. I had no fear, nothing. So I went to the hospital. Picture of me in the ER, Lehigh Valley Hospital. I was totally checked out. COVID test was negative. Of course, by then it would have been negative. But I was negative for COVID. And everything else checked out fine. But a couple of the doctors I spoke to said, yeah, you had COVID. Based on what I knew, I'm 99% sure I had COVID. And slowly but surely the shortness of breath went away. Now I'm playing competitive tennis again. But it was really, really scary. And I was, when I first had it, I was like one step away of running to the emergency room to get hooked up to oxygen. So I can understand, what people are going through. And I had ordered a oxygen pulsimeter where you can check and of course it didn't come in from Amazon because everybody in the world ordered it, so I had nothing to check. But by the time I went to the ER, it was normal. But it was really scary. It was really, really scary.
Now, are you seeing less people, are the numbers dropping?
Numbers have dropped like so much. It's like amazing. Now we, on the news, the local news stations will give you figures for COVID. And they used to be in the hundreds, and now they're down to tens or whatever, which is wonderful. I mean, this vaccine is like, I don't know if people realize what this vaccine has done. I mean, it was horrible. I mean, I know people who did not go out of their house for 6 months. They just wouldn't go out.
What were the benefits of wearing the mask? Because now a lot of places the masks have been lifted. You are, if you feel comfortable, you can obviously still wear the mask, but a lot of places that I know, the grocery store, going even to the pharmacist or in a shopping center, you do not have to wear your mask. So what were the benefits of wearing the mask?
It's very confusing. First of all, if you are not vaccinated, you have to wear the mask.
Right.
That's not even an issue, okay? If you are vaccinated and, if there's any uncertainty about how, the vaccine's like 85% effective, 90% effective, which means 1 out of 10 can still develop COVID, after being vaccinated. The good news is it's not a serious form of COVID. Okay, so you're just going to feel cruddy for a couple of days. You're not going to die from it. So that's the good news. But there's nothing wrong with being overly precautious. For instance, I went to Lowe's yesterday, and I would say 90% of the customers there had masks on. And I know a lot more of them were vaccinated, but they felt safe wearing the mask. So
but we've seen less colds. We haven't really seen like strep throat or...
Well, which is a great question, because the article in the New York Times, colds were and flu were virtually non-existent last year. It's amazing, right? Because everybody's wearing masks. Now, all of a sudden, people are starting to get colds. I know a couple of people who had cold, but people get worried. They said, oh my God, I'm getting COVID.
Right.
No, you're not getting COVID. You're getting the common cold, which disappeared last year because we all wore masks. So maybe in the wintertime when flu is really bad, maybe we should wear masks. Who wants to get the flu?
I know even in schools, kids were not getting the flu or the common cold or the sinus infections even. But we have 2 minutes left. Talk about the technology that it's rapid now with COVID testing. Now we have express testing, and we have different things ways they're testing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very easy to get tested for COVID, but the most important thing is to get vaccinated for COVID. And what makes that really important is the fact that a lot of these places are just walk-ins. Okay, so a girlfriend said, I really want, because I bug everybody to get, so I finally convinced her to get vaccinated. So I said, well, let's call up Rite Aid. And so we called up Rite Aid, and whoever was there said, come right over. Nice. I mean, nicest people in the world. Come right over. Drove her over, walked in, got vaccinated. Okay, which is really, 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 really amazing. Now, as far as getting tested there are home kits for getting tested for COVID. I mean, the point is, if you get vaccinated, you really don't need to get tested for COVID. Okay, if there's any question that with yourself, if you have symptoms of COVID, certainly if you're very, very sick, have fever, well, yeah, you want to get tested for COVID, and you can go to CVS or wherever and buy a kit and get tested. But really, you want to get vaccinated. You don't want to get COVID. You want to get vaccinated.
Very good. And again, we want to reiterate on the portion of taking care of your health and taking care of any skin conditions you have, that you do have your staff is bilingual, so don't let the barrier of communicating stop you from calling into the office, because you have a great staff. I believe 3 of them are bilingual. Lucy is one of them.
She said 4. So
the whole staff for the front. So schedule and come in and make sure you're getting your checkups now that most people are vaccinated, and you can still wear your mask and keep yourself safe.
Absolutely.
All right, Doc.
Yes, thank everybody, and we'll see you next episode.
Thank you. We'll see you next time right here on Skin Sense.